You are listening to Footy Talk, your place for the latest news, interviews and analysis from the world of AFL. It is now the second week of finals, semi-final week, and it is a Tuesday, so I'm joined by Nick Riewoldt as always. Good afternoon to you, Rooey, over there in the States. Morning here in Melbourne. First of all, what'd you make of the weekend of footy?
Thank you, Joey. Driving home before, I drove past a sign. I remember, it was probably a couple of months ago, we had the big hurricane here, and
Yep.
It caused a great issue. I'm driving home just before, and there's a sign on the freeway. It said, "Storm brewing in the Gulf. Be prepared." Which was, I was like, "Oh, are you kidding me? Not again." So it's battened down the hatches here again. I'm not sure how bad this one's going to be when it makes landfall, but I'll keep you posted. Wow, what a fascinating weekend of footy. I mean, you talk about sort of doomsday scenarios, and my mind goes straight to Port Adelaide. I mean, I was just absolutely blown away, gobsmacked, like I think a lot of us were. It reminded me of the Western Bulldogs when they walked in the prelim and did what they did to Port Adelaide, and the game was over before you could blink. And I wonder about the psychology of the group, because, I mean, you just, for all the preparation, for all the good form that they've had in the run into the finals, you just cannot see that coming. And so I immediately look for the whys. And the Tom Stewart out for Geelong, they left it until the very last minute. And I just wonder in the Port Adelaide rooms whether there is, because, you ask the question, how can you come out and get punched in the mouth like they did by the Cats in a final at home when there's so much pressure, so much talk? And I just wonder with the Tom Stewart out whether news of that filtered throughout the Port Adelaide rooms. And I mean, he has been so pivotal for Geelong, where just players, they just kind of breathe out a little bit. They just think, oh, gee, that's good. It just lulls you a little bit into a false sense of security, and maybe you just underestimate the opposition that little bit more, and you come out flat, and Geelong get their tails up, and before you know it, you're on the back foot, and the game slipped away from you. So it was just an interesting little wrinkle. I think when anything like this happens, particularly a coaching group, they'd be looking for answers as to why. I'm not sure you ever get there, but gee, it's a total head scratcher, the Port Adelaide situation, Joey.
Yeah, it is. And we'll stick on Port because you're right. Clearly, it's the psychological element of football. It's the mental aspect that has let them down in this game for whatever reason. And everyone is trying to figure out reasons. The boys on some of the shows last night were talking about starting Horne-Francis on the bench. Is that a reason? And is Tom Stewart laid out a reason? But you had to look at the game. Early in the second quarter, they hit the front, 35-31. So they're sort of in the game. But it fell away so quickly, so poorly. I've got no doubt they started tense. I made comments doing the game for Fox. Watching Geelong run out, they were relaxed and they were happy, and then Port Adelaide just had tension on their face. You could see it. Ken Hinkley had the final speech, and you just wonder whether the pressure of playing at home, in front of the fans, understanding maybe the ramifications of what happens if they do lose, was too much for them. And I think that as the game went on and their negative thoughts crept in, it just fell away from them, and it was a horrible performance. It was so poor. I suppose the question for us now, doing this show on the Tuesday, is how can they butter themselves up to go again? Because they are still a chance. They are still in this competition. They're one of 6 teams that are left, and they've got a golden opportunity in a semi-final at home, really. So what would you be doing if you were Ken Hinkley? Is it all the mental aspect that you're coaching this week? Is it going back to the structural stuff about your small defenders and how you want to play the game, how you want to set it up against a Hawthorn team that are humming? How do you go about it? Because there's also a lot of noise about Ken Hinkley and his future as well, and what this means for him if he loses. Take us inside the Port Adelaide camp.
Yeah, well, I don't think the structures and the tactical side of the game would be getting much of a mention this week for Port Adelaide, to be honest, because I think you hit the nail on the head. They were tense, and the one thing you expect to be a non-negotiable in finals is effort, and the effort wasn't there for Port Adelaide in the way that we've seen it consistently throughout this season. So I think it's absolutely an above the shoulder conversation. You'd be looking to try and demystify the pressure that they're under a little bit, and the tenseness around playing a final at home and straight sets. So look, I'd be having some hard conversations early in the week, and then I'd be trying to lighten it up as much as possible before you sort of crank them up again as you get towards game day. Because I mean, This is about as tough an ask as you can get. I know they're playing at home, but Hawthorn go over there now with it's a free swing. It is a complete free swing. You've almost got the boxer up on the ropes. He's got his arms up. He's just trying to hang on to survive. And if you're Hawthorn, they play with such excitement and energy and enthusiasm. I'm not sure that the situation could present itself worse for Port Adelaide and better for Hawthorn if you actually tried. Like, this is the perfect storm for both sides from a positive and a negative point of view. So this is as tough as it gets for Port.
But the irony now, Roo, just saying that, for me, it's almost like Port Adelaide now have got the free swing. It almost feels like this is all, like, it is almost just Hawthorn should be walking to the Adelaide Oval and winning, is now the commentary. And I might ask you right now while we talk about it, I don't know if you've seen it overnight, but Jack Ginnivan commenting on a post from Brodie Grundy saying, "See you in 14 days," has caused a real stir overnight, basically implying we're beating Port Adelaide. We're going to see Sydney Swans in the prelim. Would something like that, could Ken Hinkley use that to fuel Port Adelaide and go, this is what everyone is saying about us. This is what the opposition is saying about us, that this is just a walkover game. And is it now Port Adelaide that almost have the free swing? Because I'll just give you this stat while you think about it. 11 times since 2000, a team in a qualifying final has been beaten by 50-plus points. All 11 teams have come back to win the second week of finals.
Oh, I thought you were going to say all 11 have lost. Wow, that is a good stat.
To a win.
Well, past results mean nothing moving forward, Joey. This might be the one. But I'm convinced about Jack Ginnivan. He's playing with us all. He does this stuff. He didn't even like the food at the pub the other night. He just went down there knowing that it would cause a massive stir the next day. And then he went and backed it up. How good. I think if you can, Hickley, you're pulling out all the stops. The pressure on him. I mean, I understand the commentary around this could be his last game at Port Adelaide, if they go out in straight sets. And that's probably fair. I mean, he's probably, contemplating some of his own mortality at Port Adelaide if they don't get across the line, and whether he's the right man, because it is an above the head conversation that we're having about them. I still think Hawthorn have that mindset that they're kind of playing with house money. That's at least what it appears like, and they're playing with a freedom that I think it sets them up so beautifully this week. I'd expect for Port to come out and not be tense will be amazing. The trouble at times when you try to get rid of that tension and you just take a bit of let's just go out and play boys mentality, is you can take too much of the edge off. And I've seen it go too far the other way, and that doesn't work either. So they're going to walk a bit of a tightrope. I think they've just got to get back to preparing the way they always have, and just deliver better effort. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, it is. And I think what we've seen over the last couple of years in particular, I think, is the star-driven league. Your best players, if they play at their maximum, you go a long way to winning. And we've seen it even this final series. So I think the conversations and the looking in the mirror between Horne-Francis, Rosie, who was disappointing, and Zach Butters, who was subbed out with the sore ribs at halftime, I think those three in particular, the young superstars, need to look each other in the eye and say, right, we are not going to let this happen on our watch. This is our legacy. This could define us as individuals and as a group. Let's go out. And if they can just come and play their best footy, and that's the big if, then maybe there is a shot to cause an upset now. And it's amazing that it is an upset if they can roll the Hawks, who are absolutely flying. Just a quick one on Charlie Dixon. 2 disposals, Rooey. They kicked to him every time. That's their play, but he had no impact in the air or ground level. Would you drop him, make the hard call for Todd Marshall?
I would. I think particularly Hawthorn with their running power. Charlie, he's been a warrior. He competes fiercely in the air. He doesn't give you much when the ball hits the deck. I'd be making the change and bringing in a more mobile, less predictable forward line.
Yeah, hey, my thought was, and I went with it last week, on the watch list September is now small ball September. I know you'll hate this, Rooey. You still think the key forwards are the men and the most important players. We are now seeing more and more that the key forwards, they can have impact. Like Jeremy Cameron, although he does play a bit more like a small forward, but can have impact. But really now it's the small forwards that do the damage. I showed some numbers. Last year's final series was littered with Charlie Cameron and obviously Bobby Hill and Papley and Willie Riewoldt. And this week we saw the same thing with the Geelong small forwards, who were unbelievable. Sean Manor, Tyson Stengel, etc. The Hawks small forwards. And then watching Tom Papley go to work. I think this final series should be a bit of an eye-opener for other clubs that are watching this final series and saying, do we have the half-forwards that can do both sides of the ball, that can be as creative and damaging as what we're seeing with Hawthorn, who are building their list really well now, Geelong with what they've got. We know the Giants have been building their list around this space for a number of years. It's something that I just think we've got to keep a watch on. As the game continues to evolve, I think we are seeing the importance of the small forwards and the role they play in teams winning.
Yeah, I think it's a good shout. I mean, I think it was last week we had the conversation around sort of, St Kilda being a bit of a microcosm of that, with King when he was in the side and then King when he went out of the side, and the conundrum around key forwards, and do you pay them the massive dollars that they command when the competition is telling us that you don't necessarily need that to be effective, particularly in finals. And, I think Hawthorn are as good an example as any.
Hey, spot on. And then you can find someone like Cal Shadir. My gosh, the game that he played for a guy that's played about 13 or 14, whatever it is, 15 games of AFL footy was unbelievable. Chris Scott, we'll go back to him. You said last week that you think he's the best coach of this century since 2000. You must have been impressed with what you saw again. And do you think now the Cats can win this premiership?
Yeah, I do, because the one thing I think they've got going for them is an inner belief. I mean, I think the coach is such a weapon for them in their preparation, and then their ability to analyse the opposition and almost make them play left-handed. I think that's one thing that has become synonymous with Chris Scott is he rarely gets beaten by what is coming from the opposition. So taking the opposition's great strength away, making them play left-handed, he does that better than anyone in the competition, and they've got a group that's been there and done it. So they're in it up to their eyeballs. They're in another prelim, the Cats. What was it, 8 out of 14, so 9. It's now 9 out of 14. Just incredible. So with Scott in the box and the group having the confidence that they have because they've been there and done it, absolutely they can win it.
Yeah, and last one, quick word on the other semi-final, GWS Giants and Brisbane. For mine, two teams that are in pretty good nick. I think they are both playing really good footy. They'd be pretty comfortable with where they sit. Which preparation would you rather take? The Giants, who played their heart out and got rolled at the end, and maybe the mental toll of losing that game that was in their keeping, expecting them to bounce back? Or would you take Brisbane's prep that just came and steamrolled Carlton and won the game in the first 50 minutes and then basically shut up shop?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd probably take the at this stage of the year, I'd probably take the Lions prep. Going in chock full of confidence, a head full of steam. They're riding a wave that they've been on for a good number of weeks now. So I'd probably take the Lions prep. That being said, I think the Giants, they've got a real sort of fighters mentality. So I just think this is going to be one of the games of the year. I'm really looking forward to it. And it's almost a shame that it has to happen this soon, these two teams, because they have been in great form in the back half of the year.
Yeah, it'll be a cracker. I would almost agree with you, but I think what might lean me towards the Giants is everyone's had the bye, remember. So the Giants had to freshen up only a week ago. So I think if they can butter up mentally and play like they did against Sydney last week, I think back at home where they have a really strong record, I think they've won... it's 11 of the last 14, maybe, something like that. Don't toll this one on Footy Talk because I might not get exactly right. But they've won a lot of their games at home. I think that leans me towards thinking the Giants, if they can butter up, will win next week. But that's just an early thought. It's going to be an absolute beauty. Hey, we'll take a break. We want to get into Real Talk, Shit Talk straight after this. But if you are listening on Spotify, hit the bell when notified and we will drop a new episode. Check us out on Instagram as well at @FootyTalk_pod. You are listening to Footy Talk. If you do have a question for us, make sure you hit us up at FootyTalk_pod or on TikTok at Footy Talk Pod. Here with Rooey, we'll play some Real Talk, Shit Talk, some of the other talking points that have come out of the last 48 hours and get our take. First one for you, Rooey, the losers from the weekend, Carlton and the Western Bulldogs. Here's a tough one. It's not so much a Real Talk, Shit Talk, but I'm putting you under the pump. Which coach out of Luke Beveridge and Michael Voss will come under more scrutiny and be under more heat next season in 2025?
Ooh. I think it will be Bevo. I think Bevo will be under more pressure. I think Carlton, the back end of the year was absolutely derailed by injuries. So I'm going to give him and them a very, very reluctant pass because of the injuries. But I just it's a tough one.
It is a tough one. I'll go the other way. I'll say Vossi only because Bevo can always go back to the back pocket and he's got the premiership and he's got and I think Carlton's fans will be more vocal next year. I think they're more antsy. They want more. They're desperate for success. Where the Doggies fans maybe a little bit, they've played finals and grand finals, but so maybe Vossi, just because I think the heat from the fans will be the tipping point if it doesn't start well for Carlton. But gee, it's going to be a big talking point too. Very good.
Hopefully they're both in the granny and neither of them are under too much pressure. Joey, I've got one for you.
Yes.
It's Doggies related, but Real Talk Shit Talk, Bailey Smith will be in All-Australian contention next year at a new club.
I'm going to say shit talk. Maybe next year might be too soon, but I've got no doubts Bailey Smith will be a star at the Cats. I think he will.
Oh, at the Cats? You've declared him?
Yeah, I think he's going to the Cats.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It'll be at Geelong, and I think that he will be a star. And just him and Max Holmes running around for the next 10 years. Guess what? Chris Scott might play in a few more prelims while he just keeps rolling because they've got the... they'll just keep rolling. I think he'll be a beauty, Bailey Smith. I think, yes, he will turn into an absolute... Well, he's already a good player, but he'll turn into a jet in the hoops. One more for you. Where was I going to go? I'm going to go with... Oh, yes, got it. Goal and mark, that's an easy one. But goal and mark of the year should be included in finals.
Absolutely it should. Yeah. Absolutely it should. And present it the night of the Brownlow. I don't think we'd want to do it retrospectively after the grand final. Well, we would because you're right. You're right. Yeah, well, you're right. Absolutely. So post grand final, I mean, it's not. You don't need all the pomp and ceremony really around it, do you? But just announce it after the day after the grand final or something like that. Yeah, because it would be a shame to have someone like say Brendan Goddard's mark, for example, as well.
Yes.
That would probably have won mark of the year that year. I can't remember what it was, but something like that might bob up and happen. Last one for you, Joey. The Melbourne Review has already claimed, well, not directly, but the president's out. The internal review will result in more heads rolling at Melbourne.
Yes, interesting this now. Brad Green has become president and they're going to do an external review. So they're going to have someone, I think, from the All Blacks to be on the review. But it will be with Brad Green and Gary Pert as well. So it's a half external, half internal review. So I'm not sure how that works, Rooey. But will more heads roll? I think, that's real talk. I don't think you do these reviews and then make no change. I think that generally doesn't really happen, particularly after the last sort of 2 years of what's gone on at Melbourne. There's been so much go on and off the field. I think that maybe it's just best for everyone if they do make a few changes and try and freshen up the place and see if they can be a happy club again and a bit more sort of connected and united on and off the field and bounce back and go again. So, I think that is real. Hey, that's all we've got time for. I know you've got to go. You've got, flag football tonight? Or baseball?
Football practice, flag football tonight, Joe.
Go for it. Hey, great to see you. We'll chat next week, prelim week. It's the best week of the year.
Looking
forward to that. Of course, make sure you check us out on Instagram. Tomorrow, Abby Holmes will be here with Jack Heverin. Until then, enjoy your Tuesday. Cheers for watching Footy Talk. New episodes with Rooey and I every Tuesday.